We're taught in school that slavery was abolished many, many years ago, and we have the constitutional amendment to prove it. But the truth is, so long as you have an elite class, you will have a class who serves them. The question I guess I have for the world is, why do we have an elite society? Why do we have an elite class? Is it because they're smarter than the rest of us? Well, looking at you and me, buddy, I'm thinking that we might be possibly smarter than at least some of them. And even if it was a elite society based on something like IQ or something that somehow, the Mensa society now took over, the question is, why do we need an elite at all? And I guess to really answer that question, you have to know what I guess I'm asking. Because when you're thinking about an elite class, you're really you're talking about a system of entitlement. You're saying that I am such and you are such less, that my means are more important than your means or greater than your means because my desires are greater than yours, that my importance is more than yours. Whether it's because I'm richer than you or smarter than you or taller than you or whatever, it creates what is essentially a system of entitlement. Way back in the day, back in the Thomas Hobbes sort of state of nature, people banded together and put up with the first real form of a first system of entitlement based on the might is right, might makes right principle. The thing that's discussed and explored in the Sword in the Stone series, or the Once and Future King novel. Does might make right? And the author comes to the conclusion that no, it doesn't. And so the character King Arthur rules Camelot in a different fashion than just knocking heads to get his way. But in a despotist state, that's what they had to go by. You and I were part of a group, and we would deal with, Big Max and do what Big Max says because he was big and he was bigger than both of us, and he could kick our ass if he wanted to. So we put up with his sense of entitlement. We did what he wanted at the expense of our own wants and so forth. Then years later, we got much more sophisticated, and then we said that an invisible man in the sky anoints and chooses one of us or a group of us to rule. And it's because of that sort of authority that we had to put up with it. You see, the answer that T.H. White came to with his Once and Future King discussion, that might does not make right, the rest of the people wisen up to as well in their own way, and they question that. And so now the king is not just the biggest, meanest brute of the bunch. He is something that is appointed by something greater than any of us. Well, that worked for a while until more or less recently, where most notably probably the American Revolution, where the colonies broke away from the rule of the king because they thought, no, we should rule ourselves, and was the start of something truly remarkable and beautiful. But now what we have is yet another form of entitlements. It's all now based on wealth. And the way that money works, because it is both a system of value measurement as well as a coveted means of exchange, it becomes a very broken system that gravitates wealth towards a few people, and that's what has happened. It's just slowly over time siphoned it towards people who are really the shakers and the movers of things. And it's left the rest of us really with the only authority in the marketplace to change what's on the dollar menu or what kind of apps are on the next iPhone. And that's nothing. With all the science and the technology that we have at our disposal, you and I only have the authority or the ability in our system to say what's on the dollar menu and what's on the next iPhone. Fuck you. There's more than that. We are entitled to more than that because we're all equal. And that's really my message here. It's not about doing away with capitalism because people are greedy. It's about making people equal. And not even doing it in the way Karl Marx wanted to. I can see very easily people taking it that way. As I discussed in the article, Marxism, Marx and I think, I think we agree at least on our frustration with the capitalist state. That much I'll back him. But as I discussed in the article, the reason that communism doesn't work is because it fixes prices when prices are naturally dynamic. And so what I offer in the article is a different way of pricing things without money. And it's actually quite simple. I don't know. It's it's simple. It's you can come to price without money, and it has to do with supply and demand. And price is dictated by supply and demand, and so where does money work into that? Well, it needn't work into it. That's the point. To assign a price to something, you only need to know a metric of supply and then a metric of demand, and then you can assign a price, and it can fluctuate in real time by an automated system even. But anyway, today we have a system of entitlement, with the elites being those with the greatest means. And in our world, really, that acts as a vote as to what our capital does. And really, when I use the word capital, I'm not talking about money. Capital is the means to production. It's the warehouses that we have. It's the factories that we have. It's so on and so forth. And whether those warehouses are filled with bombs or bicycles depends on who has control over the capital. And it ain't you and me. That's the problem. Even though people like you and me come to the scientific conclusions and do the research and do the studies that lead us to technologies that would allow us to fill a warehouse full of bombs or bicycles, we are not the ones who actually decide what is done. That's what's interesting. With the American Revolution, we took the first step to empower the people in the world of government. But what we're finding today, I think what you're really seeing with the Occupy groups and the Ron Paul types and that movement, is that we recognize that having control over the government doesn't mean a thing when you have money really making the rules. We can anticipate, I think, a positive shift if we get away from a system of entitlement entirely. And that's really what money does for us. It says that I ought to get the parachute and not you because I have more money than you and we're going down in this plane. You know, if you're in an airplane with Bill Gates, there's only one parachute. Money says that Bill Gates gets the parachute and you're just SOL. Why? Well, there's no good reason. That's what entitlements are all about. Entitlements have no good reason. It's just a because I said so sort of an attitude. If you really believe that all people are equal, as I do, then you can't stand for entitlements. You can't stand for money. You can't stand for, religious anointment of people for authority purposes, and you don't believe in might makes right either. If you're like me, then you won't stand for any of that. You won't put up with Big Macs. You won't put up with the king. You won't put up with the fat cats on Wall Street, because you know, as I, that we are all equal.